Oh, I figured out the problem with the soundboard.
Oh.
Which now it's
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
and this is episode 108.
Where's Tony?
I'm back now.
Tony's back. Tony is back.
Oh, I was I can't believe I took that much time off doing.
Yes, we weren't sure if Tony was coming back. We were getting nervous. We're like, he's got an excuse every time. And of course, Mary's not this time, so we can't, take tag team and razz him right now.
Right. I'm like, I finally got somebody to do the editing and running the show without me.
Yes. I don't mind the editing though. Now I'm glad there's actually two of us. But then again, I changed the editing process, so we're down to one of us again until I show Tony the new editing process. But worst case is Tony has the old editing process, which does work.
That's right.
And it worked well for many, many years.
Yeah.
Mine's better. I'm just going to say it's simpler. We were using some older software to edit, and it's one of those things you don't want to change because, well, you've been doing it this way, and we've got this many listeners this way, so it's not broken.
Right. But yeah, now Tom has the new way with doing audio editing in Caden Live.
Oddly enough, Caden Live, the popular open source video editor, does really good with audio editing, and even has because it offers some of the waveform display. It's easy to cut and manage and splice in. And I never thought about it. I mean, I've used it for audio because I do audio overlays when I do my tutorial videos that I post on YouTube. So it's all I'm just doing is skipping the video part.
Yeah. So I really appreciate it. Like I said, it worked out really good for the last 3 recording sessions that I missed, which ends up being 6 episodes.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, we record everything in one day and share it with you twice.
Right. So what I was doing is just the way our camping plans for this summer lined up is that I was camping for 1 week, I was back home for a week, and then camping another week. And it just lines up that's 5 weekends that either I'm coming or going to a campsite, a campground. And then the show after that was my anniversary weekend. So we were spending time, I was spending time with my wife, 11 years being married. And
so wish congratulations on that.
Thanks. I just saw that lined up for an extended absence.
Yeah. You don't want to mess up that 11 years either. So that's why Tony had to be absent.
That's right. Yeah. Even though I like doing this and I want to be here for everybody, but family comes first.
Yeah. You got to take some time off, keep that record going.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
So besides your glamping, what else is new in Tony's world?
Glamping, glamorous camping.
Glamorous camping.
Yeah, this year is the first time we had a camper for my family, me and the kids. We have a pop-up, so that's we went camping with it. It's been tenting.
And for those previously. Of us who maybe haven't listened before, how many are in the Bemis family now?
There's 5 now.
Yes,
3 kids and 2 adults.
It's easier if you can put them in a camper.
That's right. And keep them out of the water. The last day we were there, it rained so bad that my sister was in a tent, and she got out, and she was in one of those air beds.
Yeah.
And that was floating on top of 3 inches of water inside their tent.
I camped a lot when I was younger, and that was the thing I hated. We had a couple times, because you pick the date, you set it up, you go, and if the weather isn't cooperative, you flood.
Yeah.
And I had a couple. Only one time we ever had to leave the campground because it was the whole campground was underwater where we were.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So we went and we had to drive to. We have relatives in northern Michigan, and we went and stayed at one of their cabins.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, it flooded out completely. Like we were standing in water, and we had cots, and it's like ankle deep. You're like, you can't sleep in this.
No. Wow, that's bad. All right. Yeah, but otherwise, I'm getting ready for my Ohio Linux Fest talk, the offensive security. And part of getting ready is I did a practice run at my local lug. The one I'm more identify with because I've been with them longer, which is the MD lug.
Yes.
I've done the talk at MUG, which is the MUG, the Michigan Users Group. But I did my talk at MD lug yesterday, and it went pretty well. I did an Android rat talk.
Very cool.
Yeah, RAT is a remote access Trojan. So you have to get the file to the phone or the Android device, and then it has a reverse TCP proxy, which then makes the phone connect back to me, and then I can get into it and do things, and it worked this time. When I did it at Mug before, it didn't work, so I was able to get it to work, and it was exciting.
Yes, that's really cool. That's it's a powerful tool in all the tool sets that are in Kali Linux, but being able to make that work is pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I think I'm getting closer to being ready. I got a new laptop. I'm getting ready to move over to it, but I thought, it'd be cool to run Kali on it for a little bit because it's a Dell Precision, so it looks kind of cool. It's no Alienware laptop, but it's still a high end. It's a 2 gig graphics video card and i7, and it has 4 RAM slots. It's kind of um, it's not normal for a laptop to have 4 RAM slots, so that's cool. So what have you been doing, Tom?
Oh, lots of fun stuff. So, we did the talk about sync thing, which of course I'm diving more into, of how I'm real-time backing up, not just ours, but a few different clients that are scared of the cloud, and they like the fact that we store their data. So we're moving them over to sync thing now for real-time backups.
Oh,
So that's been kind of interesting. We're still snapshotting it. That way a problem doesn't cascade across, but it has a new advantage by doing this for them. They're all on Windows boxes, but something I like is one of them they're aggravating. They delete things a lot. They really need a good backup solution. That's why they like calling us, because their lack of tech savvy combined with the fact that they goof up. I can take a file and restore it for them. Now, if I restore it on my server, it reverses it. It cascades back to theirs immediately,
nice.
which is really cool. It also saves me the trouble because we keep multiple copies. I keep one at my office server, and then I back it up on an encrypted drive at my home. With syncing, that's all done in real time now.
Nice.
So, and then at Office is where I do the snapshots of their file systems. That way, if anything ever really bad happened, I can just roll back to an entire versioning, but I've got all the versioning turned on. And so I just grab things out of the ST versions folder as they goof them up. And it seems like about once a week sometimes they deleted their entire scheduling calendar for their company.
What?
Yeah, I don't know how. And it's because they really like this really stupid Windows scheduling program that you have to click through 3 errors every time you open it, because the company that wrote it went out of business, and they have a stupid thing that checks their website for a new version. So it does a bunch of dump errors that you have to click continue to every time you open it. But they love the software so much. I can't talk to them and use anything else because they're used to using this.
Oh, wow.
And they've got 5 user licenses for it. So yeah, and it uses a shared Microsoft database between 5 people to do scheduling for this company.
Wow. Is it Access?
Yeah, it is completely access based.
Oh.
It actually does work really well. Whoever wrote it seemed to write it well, but it wasn't enough to keep them in business because it's some obscure product. I have no idea how they found it. And it's some obscure product, and they refuse to look at any other web-based calendaring app or anything.
Really?
But it breaks once in a while, and sometimes they accidentally group delete things when they're trying to move things.
No.
But if I could just take that file and push it back now over sync thing when I get them set up, I don't have to remote into their server, because our current backup system we use is I should probably document that, because it's actually pretty cool tools that you can run on Linux and Windows. So I have a Linux server in the back end catching all the files, and then a server on the front end. It's called a tool, open source tool called Delta Sync. That will back up via SSH keyed tunnels and rsync. And it's a complete Windows install system that can install on Windows box. You just point it at directories, and it'll back them all up to a Linux server. Nice. It'll actually back them to a lot of different destinations, but one of them is that. There's also Duplicati and one more that are similar programs that have Windows clients with Linux servers. So been playing a lot more with that. I'm looking at a few more other backup systems. We also did a video review on Clone Deploy. I posted on my YouTube channel, which is a open source implementation of the IPXE protocol for booting and supports UEFI boot environments, 32 and 64-bit, which has been the trend at my store. Of course, with newer computers, they all have the UEFI, and we have to deal with that. So now we can easily image the UEFI based systems. I mean, on a fast computer, it takes me 7 minutes to load Windows. completely up to date, and everything else. So
That's fast.
yeah, and it's pretty much what we do is reload Windows. That's people think, what do you do at a computer store? Reload Windows. What do people do? Break Windows in weird and interesting ways, and we give them the option of I will spend hours troubleshooting at a billable rate, or I will just reload your Windows and you can get back on Facebook and Candy Crushing it. So
Yeah.
that's the majority of what we do is less creative.
They lose their settings, but it's much quicker and cheaper.
And people don't care. They are caring less and less about that. And some of the desktop sync features in Windows 10, because Windows 10 breaks randomly, which we should probably talk about why we're in this studio real quick with our listeners. So we love Podcast Detroit. Don't get me wrong. Wonderful people, great studio, great space we have here. They do run Windows because they're normals, you know, and which is fine. But they have 3 studios here. And we had to move to this studio because Windows decided this morning was update time. So, and as of 20 minutes ago, I'd walked over there just before because we came in and checked it. We waited a while. Then we moved everything over here to this studio, got a stream and everything set up. And we went back over there just before I hit go. It's at 70%. It's still updating 30 minutes, 20 minutes later.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, the irony of recording our open source podcast. Yes, it does record on commercial software on Windows. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But it's the nature of the studio.
Right.
They're good people, though. They mean well. They don't know the ways. They should listen to our podcast.
They should. Oh, but all right, cool.
Yep, that's caught up on that. So
yeah, the other thing, we're recording on September 11th.
Oh yes,
and in the U.S., it's a big day for remembrance, and that makes me remember, you know, where I was that day, and not to dwell on it, because the more you dwell on bad things, then
yeah,
you know, it's not a good thing. But I was just thinking back how I was in college, and I remember getting ready for college, and my sister calls me, and she says, "Where are you?" You turn on the TV, and I turn it on, and just to see, you know, the right in the middle of everything, and I happen to have I can't remember the exact name of the class, but it was like government class of some sort. So we sat all day discussing about how governments would deal with something like this, and with the TV on, and so it was a interesting day for it to happen on the day I was having class. And
yeah, I worked in corporate IT then, so that was a whole interesting thing, because we you know, I was in my office and we only had this little tiny TV in the lunchroom because we were a transportation company and we had a lunchroom for our drivers. And but I was the IT director then, and it was just kind of a weird thing because I'm like looking at it and, you know, trying to watch the news. And back then the news, because it's, you know, 2001, the internet news was very primitive. So you didn't have real-time feed updates or anything. So, you know, it was going back for TV. It was kind of trying to grasp what was going on, which really just, it was weird. Like I didn't know what to think. I was only 25 at the time. So it was kind of like, what do we do? What do we think? And yeah, it was a weird.
You're telling me earlier about you were
trace routing. Yeah. Something, you know, and having a techie mind, it just made me think right away for resilience. Was what would happen to the internet. So for those who don't know, the World Trade Center was also one of the large data centers and connection points in New York to Europe. That was kind of an endpoint. And because the internet works so well with resilience, when it can lose a node, that was a very major traffic point to lose. Your routes from Detroit area where I'm at over to Germany would reroute it. Instead of going through New York like they normally did, they backhauled all the way across, bounced into Australia to Russia, back over to Europe. So it was really interesting to I think someone somewhere has done some type of like shown when supernodes go down how the internet just reroutes itself, and the resilience of the protocols used in there. So which is actually something, because if anyone remembers, the internet was a DARPA project, and it was how do we keep communications going in an active war?
Yeah.
So this was an active
backups and
the backups and everything else. And I did see some trivia. I didn't know this. The Queen of England broke protocol and ordered that the Royal Guards play the national U.S. anthem for people stuck, and this is on 9/11, for people in the U.S. that could not leave because there was no flights.
Wow.
So they played the national anthem over in England for them. I thought I seen that trivia pop up today, and I was like, that's kind of novel.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the 15 years ago now.
It was 15 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So that. All right, on to
listener feedback.
We want to hear from you. Call 734-258-7009 or email show@smlr.us with your feedback and questions.
All right. And one of the things I heard you guys talk about in the last show was a PayPal donation.
Mhm.
And I got an email about it for some reason. PayPal didn't send it to me. But I did look on there and I did see the donation. So what I want to do is if you could email me, is it Scott? I think it was that
Yeah.
was yeah.
Sounds right.
Go ahead and email me again, and I will I'll make sure that we get you a shirt. I think all we have left is 2X. Is that right? Or maybe it's 1X and 2X. So as long as those fit you, let me know, and we will get you a shirt.
Absolutely.
And then we had one before that I know we got the email in, but I kept on saying something about it, which was Norman. And he did a really good, like, he was very generous in his donation, and that was back in June 23rd. And so I really want to say thank you to you. I apologize again for not saying something in the last couple episodes, but he had said that a 1X or a 2X shirt wouldn't fit him. And I want to say, I'm wrong with 1X. I'm pretty sure it's just 2X that we have left. That it wouldn't fit him, so he didn't want to have a shirt. So maybe on the next run, when we get more shirts made, then we'll make sure we get some mediums and some larges and extra larges. Because I didn't realize we had such fit people listening to us.
I'm shocked because that does not qualify for me or you.
Right.
We both wear extra large shirts.
I'm a 2X guy.
Yeah, and they're a little snug.
So thank you again. What else did we have for email?
I think I seen one about TrueOS and PCBSD from Charlie. Kind of a discussion of some of the problems I guess he's been having with TrueOS and PCBSD.
Mm-hmm.
But not.
You said Charlie?
Yeah.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah.
Yep.
He
found it to be rather dicey and had some trouble running quite a few of the ports that were available from the FreeBSD ports when they ran stable. I see I can understand and can imagine why this OS will be like now that they decided to track current rolling release fashion. So we're talking about TrueOS and moving to the rolling release features on there. Yeah, Mary doesn't like the name. She has her comments in here, so she's a listener in this case.
Right.
She's not with us today.
Another email that was from Jay Hoff, and he was saying how he was listening to how you're a data hoarder.
Yes.
And you wanted to know what kind of software organization you use.
Yes, and I had actually emailed him back a couple different open source projects. Now, my software organization is, I was trying some of those open source tools, and the, where is it at? OpenDocMan was one of them I had suggested to him, which is an open source document management system, but that requires you, the user, to, as you upload files into the repository, to create meta files for each one. So it's a database system that helps track your files, has check in, check out. It's a cool open source project, but it doesn't auto organize all of your data. I don't know too many of them, at least I haven't researched them that do it. I am a data hoarder, but everything's broke down to folders and years. And for example, old things I have, like so many text files from BBSs and things like that, I just have a whole subfolder for each one, and then they're broke down into sometimes the types of text files they are. So I just have this massive hierarchy of folders that I've used to organize things over the last, it goes back over 20 years now that I've been doing it, because I literally still have my Sony Mavica photos from my Sony Mavica floppy.
Floppy disk.
Yeah, they used a floppy disk camera back from 1995 when I bought 95 or 96 when I bought that. I still have any photos, and they're organized by date. and
Yeah.
by event. So I would put an event and the date, like went up north, and you could fit, I think it was like eight high res photos on there. Man, I
Wow.
used to buy boxes of floppies, and then I would always be worried about floppies getting erased. So then I'd back them all up on my computer, and I had dual floppy drives on my computer.
Ooh.
Yeah, that way I could put 2 in and copy. But because floppies, if you remember this, they share an IRQ and DMA, so they actually won't do it successively. They won't do it concurrently.
Yeah.
They only do successive. But it's still, I could put 2 floppies in and kick off a command, and it would slowly copy them back. So my
Yeah.
data hoarding has just been me organizing before there was data to do this, because it was the 90s. And so when you organize from the get-go, I can still look up and find things because I still have that same hierarchy. And I do save photos different now. Because I mostly use my camera phone, so that's been done differently now. They're much, much less labeled than they used to be, because the phone doesn't label them, and I don't batch download them in the same way.
Yeah, I do the same thing. For years, since I think it was 99 is when I started doing digital photos, and I always did everything by date. And so I said, well, we went there on this day, so I would go back in those dates and find it. And I have the same problem where I look at my dates and my pictures folder. I'm like, I really haven't taken much photos since like 2014.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That's when I got my camera.
Yeah.
Everything I've taken, or on my phone with a good camera on it. So everything I've taken is over in this other folder from my phone.
If you told someone 10 years ago the smartphones would destroy the consumer camera market, people would go, what are you talking about? And they did. It took less than, and 2 years later, there's not even barely display anywhere. There's not even a buzzword about what's the latest, consumer camera.
Yeah.
And any of the video, even the high-end cameras, when you get to the prosumer, like the DSLRs, it's all about what their video capabilities are.
Oh, really?
Everyone's poo-pooing the new Canon 80D as this is a successor to the 70D because it doesn't do 4K. And I'm like, that's literally like the only talk is about its video features not being better than its previous version.
Wow.
And it's like, it's a DSLR.
Yeah.
But that's it. The machines. Back to data hoarding. Things like Open Document, if you just search for a couple open source document management systems, there are some really cool ones out there that just allow you to organize it. And if you're a business, I'd love to get one of my business clients to start using something like this because it would help them so much finding and checking out documents. It's meant for if you've worked I did previously work in a corporate, if you're doing ISO documentation, it will help manage all of that for you.
Oh.
So you can say who checked out that document, who last edited that document. I mean, Microsoft does have enterprise solutions for this, but they're very pricey if you're using some of their tools like SharePoint and things like that to really build an entire managed document repository. It can be done in another way. So
nice.
But yeah, data organization is hard. Video organization, because I shoot so many videos, that's even harder. It's figuring out what to do with it all. I produce too much data.
Oh yeah, there's so much there that when I do videos, it's very little, but when I do, it's all just the name of the project.
With my YouTube channel, it's becoming ridiculous.
Yeah, you have a lot of them.
Terabytes. And I'm like, where do I put it all? And I'm just starting to figure out what I need to keep and delete.
Yeah. Do you keep your originals or do you just keep the edited version?
I'm coming up with a system that'll let me keep them for a year. And I'm working on an auto deletion system. So after a year, just because I'm going to run out of space. And if I don't do it, auto deletion, I'll be too selective and him and haw and just keep running out of space and not know what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep it. Yeah, I want to talk about that project when I make it all happen and make it automated. But it's going to be my method.
Well, if you hang on long enough, in the next, was it 2 years, a year? No, probably in less than a year. There's supposed to be a 64 terabyte disk drive.
Yeah, and then I don't have to organize again, and I'm not going to be unhappy about that. I'll be like, yay, Tom doesn't have to do anything but just keep it all,
right,
and have it on more than one hard drive. No, and an example would be an edited project, that I uploaded that was 300 megabytes, 14-minute video of really high definition video, started out as, just 10 times that. And I do keep backups of all the edited versions.
Yeah.
I rarely need to reference a video, but like we did the time lapses when we did a build, all those time lapse cameras just gathered data, and the project went on for 2 months.
Wow.
And so we have to parse through it and have it all till, and whittle it all down to actual video that's only 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
So 2 months of time less. So people look at the video like, that's so cool. I'm like, you know how many hours in video that is? These cameras are just recording all the time. And we have to just, sometimes
Oh, really?
we leave them on overnight because we keep going back to the same project. So we put a camera in place and it just stays on overnight, over days.
Mm.
And we just download the card, put it back in.
I always thought the time lapse was just pictures taken every like once a minute or something.
Where you that's one way to do it, but that actually creates some really interesting problems. When you start doing it that way, you end up with too many files in single folders or even multiple folders, and that span across. And Linux, actually any program, it just has a hard time dealing with, like, look, 20,000 photos in one folder. Compile these and composite them.
Oh, yeah.
So the newer cameras I have do incremental. They take a picture, but they add it to a video, so they're appending a video, so it's one single contiguous file, which becomes way easier to edit. And you set the definition of, okay, record every 5 seconds, just one more snapshot every 5 seconds.
Oh, that's neat.
So it doesn't make the file quite as big, but it still creates a large file each time,
right?
Like, oh, there's 9 more gigs of data from this one camera, and we had 3 going.
Yeah.
So there's 27 gigs, one project.
Yeah.
And that's not even the me adding the audio and the live motion video and everything else. So you're talking about 60, 70 gigs, and that's in a video that's edited down to 7 minutes when it's done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big project. Yeah.
Maybe I should do a whole fresh looks on data hoarding. I'll do it once I get organized and have a method for it.
Right.
All right, moving on.
Moving on. I didn't see anything else come through unless you did.
Don't either.
I want to say we had a comment on the website. Let me jump over there real quick. I thought those got emailed out to you guys also, but I'm not sure. Let's go over to comments. This is great audio, isn't it? Great. There was... There's ones that Tom sounds like somebody should shoot zombies, snowmen in his backyard.
Someone's referring to, if anyone wants to message me, we love listener feedback. So if anyone wants to just message us, they're referring to the fact that I think it was one of the guns I made.
Oh yeah.
So not gun, it was a kind of resembled a Gatling gun, but it was a Roman candle one, and we were shooting monitors in my backyard.
Oh yeah.
So anyone who finds my personal YouTube page, a channel, or me on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, I post these videos on there. We have blown up computers, we have shot monitors, and my latest one is, everyone's been laughing because I made a potato gun and we fired it in my house at my wife not at my wife, not with a potato in it. When we got it finished, me and the kids went in the house and she was sitting on the couch and we stood next to the couch and we fired it at the floor, and all he did was release all the air in there. And of course it's loud and it went whoosh.
Yeah.
and it blew the curtains, and it was pretty funny.
Wow.
So yeah, if anyone follows me on what I'm doing when I'm not doing Linuxy things, I build things, and you can't go wrong with fireworks. Well, you can, but it's so much fun.
Right.
I just bought a bunch of high voltage stuff we're going to be playing with too. That's also on my, there's a 40
capacitors.
No, there's a 40,000 volt transformer that we play with and we get rid of old computers with, because it's just way more fun to destroy them. And then we bought some miniature ones off Amazon that I'm going to be putting some reviews together for. And it's one of those one-off things that I do. We just like playing with high voltage. It's just fun. So we have ones that are battery operated high voltage devices that we're building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I feel like it's a waste. I have all these board level skills because I used to be a TV repair technician when my shop did TV repair. I don't do it anymore other than for hobbies. I don't build anything. I just buy stuff because it's easier. And I know that's the wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
But it's just easier. I'm like, I can just go buy the thing.
Yeah, I know. I get the same thoughts that, it needs to be fixed. And then, and then it's not like filling up landfills. But then,
it's
if I'm
$7.
saying, yeah, it's cheap. And then now I'm taking time to fix this instead of spending time with my kids.
Yeah.
And
we do solder together lighting projects and things like that. And the high voltage ones are going to be fun. We got some project kits that we're going to do. And I did build a useless machine. That's actually, I wish I would have documented building it because that was a lot of fun.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
That's it for listener feedback.
Yeah, that's all I saw in there. So, all right. So I guess we're moving on to
Distro Fever, where we cover the latest hot distro releases and news.
all right. So did you get to look around to see what recently came out?
Looking. Let's see. There is some updates to
Mint KDE, Mint
Mint.
18.
Yes, and a Cinnamon desktop. I was actually reading that. I watched a video on it this morning. Some of the new features with the Cinnamon desktop too.
Yeah.
Just new enhancements with Mint and some of that, which is definitely pretty cool.
Yeah.
Looks like
That's
Peppermint.
why I run the Cinnamon. Yeah.
You like it?
Oh, I do. Yeah, it's definitely for me.
I've just been running Ubuntu out of habit, and it's functional, and things don't break. That's bottom line, because I have to run something stable because I'm always working, and I just need everything to work.
Yeah.
So if it's stable, I can give it a shot. That's my big hang up all the time.
It's actually, I think it's more stable than Ubuntu.
Okay.
The only downfall is that it doesn't do the upgrade in place upgrades easily.
Oh,
It's possible to do them, but there's a lot of times there's errors and
yeah,
stuff, but
that was the other thing. Are you talking about that you got one to work, but it's a lot of work to make it work?
yeah.
And that's something else, because I have some custom compiled software, which oddly enough survives Ubuntu upgrades. I needed some features. I really wanted to try them out with the Kden Live software, so I had to compile it, and that survives Ubuntu upgrades.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's really not been custom rolling that with the features I wanted wasn't really much of a problem.
Yeah.
Which I got to do again. They have another release, and I'm wishing they would. I don't know why. I mean, it's a great project. I don't think it gets enough love.
Right.
People need to manage money. I'm a business. I use it. It works.
Hey.
I did one of the only English reviews on it on YouTube. Oddly enough, it seems to have more French support than English.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. What else do we have in there?
AV Linux. Maybe we should get the studio to move over to that, and so we're not sitting waiting for a.
Yes.
I was making the comment. What would we get up? We're early in the morning. Nobody comes on after us, so we have time. We have the luxury to sit around and either wait for that or to switch studios. But what would have happened if one of the shows that when all the studios are being used and there's another show coming up next?
Yeah.
Would they have to just cancel the show?
Cancel the show or shorten the show, move the schedule back for everybody. I think they leave a half hour, 45-minute gap between shows though, but I'm not positive. I never looked at the schedule, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting problem. And Windows updates are disruptive. We've seen presentations messed up by them. We've seen, because Windows 10 is not smart when it comes to things like, oh, you're on a battery. That's okay. We have an update to load.
Right.
I haven't figured that out yet. Used to Windows 7 never would load on a battery. Windows 10 doesn't seem to care. We've run into it. I'm not sure what the switch I'm missing is, but the default options at least are set that way. I think there's some way to change it, but that's kind of ridiculous.
I think what is the battery life has changed from the development cycles. That in 2007 when Windows 7 came out, right, or was it 2010? That batteries we had on average a 4-hour battery life.
Yeah.
Well, now with tablets and Chromecasts, Chrome laptops, well, not Chrome laptops obviously, but
just generally
tablets, the battery life is 12 hours now.
Yeah, but the other side of that is that was always our trick. With Windows 7, when I knew there was pending updates and we were fixing something for a client, we just unplug it and restart it and plug it back in, and it would stop it. Because Windows used to have that option, restart and load updates.
Yeah,
that option went away in Windows 7, but the quick answer was you just unplug it real quick and restart it, and it would restart back in there so you could finish what you're working on and load the updates later. Windows 10 doesn't seem to care.
Nice.
Which, of course, that's also why we get a lot of bricked ones that come in, because they failed to load an update and it was doing it while the battery was on. And
when the battery dies.
Well, when you talk about an update taking 30 minutes and of intense CPU usage, even if you have a good battery, that I bet the studio's still updating.
Probably is. All right.
So FreeNAS has the 10 new version of the 10 beta, which me being a big FreeNAS lover, I'm excited about this. I don't know if it's going to be a smooth upgrade between 9 to 10 because they're making some major changes to the way the jail system works. I don't have those changes in the top of my head right now, but I remember actually talking with last year the Ohio Linux guys at the Ohio Linux Fest, they had the FreeNAS guys there.
Yeah.
And they were saying that there's some, they were just going over all the changes that are for that. And it's really great. I mean, they're doing some awesome things. I'm excited for it. I'm just not sure if it's going to break any of the jails that we run, because they're redoing the way that system works. They're greatly improving it, but
Yeah.
that also comes at, I don't know how smooth it's going to upgrade, but your data is going to be safe. They're just using ZFS, which I can't say enough good things about ZFS. The more I use it, I mean, Michael Lucas writing a book on it. We reviewed his book. I seen his talk. ZFS, man, it's the future. And we learned that from the Ubuntu guys that said, we're not, what was the other one? ButterFS that they were pushing. They admitted internally, they use everything on ZFS. It's just so well developed. It's so scalable. It's what Ubuntu runs in some of the data center stuff that they're working on is ZFS.
Nice.
It just, they can't beat. It's like, it's so good. Why would we want to, we would just have to duplicate it all. Why duplicate it?
Yeah. All right.
And of course, that's related to all the updates that we see with the BSD world, which is moving right along. They seem to be moving pretty fast too. Me and Mary were talking about that last time, that there's the BSD updates are coming. They're code sprinting. I remember seeing a couple of them on there, a couple of revisions, I think, within the same week.
Yeah.
I think it was like, I think it was at RC1 to RC2, something pretty fast. We're seeing a lot more of that. I think just in general, I mean, it went from, I started a long time ago using open source editors and it was tough. And now we're seeing just lots of movement on that, on all the fronts, and not just one product, like several.
Right. Yeah, I know like Apple, they found a couple of problems in it, and within like weeks they had iOS updates, and yeah, bad stuff.
People are realizing you got to update. Well, the iOS updates were great. We could do a whole story on that. That was a really fascinating read. The company that was selling it, they're selling the exploits as a subscription. It's really interesting.
That's funny. You know, when I started doing my program in my master's program with security, that's one thing that I figured somebody out there would be doing it, but I didn't think there was a big market that somebody would be developing software and marketing it on the on the black markets for that kind of thing. And
it's interesting. Well, I think that's all I have for the distro watch.
All right.
Because we'll get more into that other topic in the news.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're going on to
tech news and views.
So, Tom, you said you had a few articles already, or?
Oh yeah, I got plenty already.
I'll let you start with it.
In a desperate attempt to slow their fall into irrelevance, Adobe has decided to update Flash for Linux. I've seen this and I'm like, I got nothing, guys. Really? I thought, can't we just make it go away? Can't we just say it's dead?
Yeah, I was hoping that they're stopping the development for Linux was part of the nail in the coffin, but they want to just open that back up again.
Yeah, I'm not real clear on the whole methodology behind it, but they're doing it. So there's that. Not that any of us probably really use it that much. I'm happy to pretty much see Flash go away. It's always been a process hog and vulnerability vector, huge threat surface, and just HTML5, guys. HTML5. Admittedly, though, we do have tons of people that come in complaining about their Flash not working because all these old gaming sites are so little money in setting up solitaire games online. No one's stopping to rewrite them.
Yeah. So
all these online games that lots of older people play, that's usually where Flash problems come. Flash and old Java stuff.
Right.
So Julia Reda, a member, I think I'm saying her REDA, hopefully I'm saying her name right, a member of the EU Parliament for the Pirate Party, yay, explained at QTCon how proprietary software has often left regulators in the dark, becoming a liability and often a threat to the well-being and health of citizens. And this is on the European Free Software Foundation. He did a blog post about it. But she was just saying that we really need to look at more open source software here in the European Union. And, you know, she's a politician for the Pirate Party and at the EU, and it is really a thing. We're slowly seeing, and we get to talk about this at almost every show now, that we see at least one more government policy moving forward in the open source, and the governments are kind of realizing we're scared of what these vendors are putting in there. And this is where this malware backdoors really become an issue, because with this, companies are selling these exploits and things like that on the black market. And then the other side of that is the companies are maybe working in conjunction with a closed source company. Hey, I'll sell you backdoor access, because they're realizing there's such a big multi-billion-dollar market of black market going on that if you have a closed source product and they insert a backdoor on a government project, they could then sell access to another government.
Yeah.
Now, that would ruin a reputation if they were ever found out. This could create a big problem for them, but the risk of being found out versus the gains, lose the contract. But if I make $1 billion, the contract, I could make more money. I could sell the government cheap software that's closed source with a back door than I could, you can make the money all back on the back end, selling it to China, selling it to this. I mean, it's a scary thought. Now, people say, oh, there's still vulnerabilities in open source. Yeah, but they're not baked in. They're usually just half-baked ideas that were implemented wrong. Anytime there's a flaw in open source, it's like, oh yeah, we should have sanitized that code, or we should have looked at that. But they, and they do go unnoticed, but they're open source and we find them and we have an understanding. But when you bake in backdoors, and we've seen this with Fortinet, we've seen this with a couple of them, those hard-coded backdoors, and that's stuff that runs governments. They are high-end. Juniper and Fortinet are making commercial big iron routers that are used in very large installations, and I think that they had a hard-coded password in there. That's just
I was just trying to think, if you have Fortinet, or if you're looking at running stuff for your corporation, you want to go for a big business because you get a lot of support. But the problem is, Cisco, Fortinet, all these big companies all have been found to have backdoors, have something wrong with them. Juniper is also one of those.
Yep.
And it's like, what do you do? I mean, you roll your own, but then you have to pay more in support because you're supporting it yourself at that point.
Yeah. And I seen a top comment on Reddit of why you don't want to install pfSense in your corporate firewall, and the top comment was, that way you can blame, and it says insert corporate company here, Cisco, Juniper, Fortinet, all in brackets, and they said them for whatever problem, even when you actually created the problem by programming the rules wrong, and you can just delegate it and you don't get fired. They said if you suggest a custom solution like pfSense, every problem, even if it's not your problem, even if you're just getting DDoSed, will be because you suggested the open source one. Hence, anyone who wants to keep their job won't do it.
Right.
And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's somewhere to blame.
I can just say Cisco's working on it, and which one of my friends, well, funny inside drama, they were blaming Cisco for a wireless problem. It turned out it was misconfigured by the previous tech who ended up losing his job because he didn't know what he was doing and said he knew what he was doing. So new tech comes in and goes, this is wrong. And they're like, we've been dealing with this problem for a while. And they're like, that's because it's configured wrong. And he goes, he's been blaming Cisco. Well, it's not Cisco. It's not configured right.
Wow. Yeah.
We're going to get rid of that guy.
Right. But even with what I was starting to say is that I would still go with pfSense.
There are many companies
and you can get corporate support for that too.
That's where I think that's such a good move of free NAS or free pfSense and free NAS too. But those companies that are running these open source products give away the product and offers paid support. And anyone who's not paying attention, Red Hat, that's how they make money. Right. Red Hat's done extremely well in that specific market by giving it away. And of course, if you ever watched that movie Revolution OS, that documentary, they talk about that. No one had heard of that business model before, where you give away your software and then you charge for support. And it took them a long time to go public or even find anybody willing to throw money at them. They're like, you guys are crazy. This business model won't work. Red Hat's still here today, and Red Hat's doing well.
Yeah.
I didn't check their stock price, but they're okay.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad business model.
They're still in business when a lot of other places have gone out.
Yes. So on to other news, the single board computer has now sold over 10 million units since launching back in 2011. And I'm talking about the Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi.
What I could not find is any actual statistics on the Raspberry Pi for how many of those are running Windows 10. I want to know just how dismal of a number it was, because Microsoft has been trying to push that Windows 10 will run on a Raspberry Pi as a command line interface. And then you can load Bash on it. Then you can do all the things you could do out of the box with Linux.
Right.
I don't know. The concept was on a Raspberry Pi that there's so much Windows software out there that people want to run Windows on it. The reality of that is most of the things that you'd want to run require more CPU power. So it's not like we really want to run Excel on a Raspberry Pi, right, or even some of the other miscellaneous. There's very few coding tools I found, or I should say, maybe some monitoring tools and things like that, that there's not a better version of on that when it comes to, DevOps work that I'd rather run Windows versus Linux for. So I think that's part of the reason it never catch on. If I'm wrong, someone tweet me, email me, message me, send it to listener feedback. But why would I want to run Windows 10 on a Raspberry Pi? And probably our listeners aren't going to have an answer for that.
Actually, I have part of a question, or I have part of an answer, because my cousin actually was he works for Microsoft, and he was working on the IoT project. And he says they know that they can't get it to run a graphic, a GUI running on it. And it's the same reason why a lot of people don't like Raspberry Pis for Linux, is that the drivers are proprietary.
Yes.
And they're not writing drivers for Windows. So Windows just can't run on it.
Yeah.
So they know they can't run graphics. So they're doing the IoT thing where you can run a little project-based stuff. But then at the same time, now you have to have a back end somewhere else to be able to connect to it and run it. So I don't know. I just don't think it's a really good setup.
And I've heard some people complain because their Raspberry Pis are not fully open source because of the stacks that run within inside the chip. The chips are not Libre, but I really like them as a project. And I'm not that I'm against people repurposing old computers, but compared to a Raspberry Pi, sometimes when people want to repurpose something, the nice thing about a Raspberry Pi is it's super low wattage, and it's $30-something for the base unit. So what are you saving when you save an old computer? Saving $30, and you're going to waste it in electricity the first month.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify what I was saying, that not a good solution or not a good idea was the Windows IoT. Raspberry Pis I love, and the only reason I don't have 5 or 6 of them sitting around the house is because I have a desktop computer that I run VMs on. So everything that I would do on a Raspberry Pi, I can just spin up a VM and not use any more power than what I was running before.
Yeah, our daily use project for Raspberry Pi is still our Raspberry Pi Shredder project, which we love. We just shred hard drives all the time with it, and it's been great. And the reason we don't run it, we used to run that in like a separate thing, but they were always scared because we're like, wow, if we put this computer is used for more than one thing. So we're always afraid it would shred the wrong drive or something. So now that it's a dedicated Raspberry Pi, and it has one purpose in life: you plug a drive in, it wipes it with a 3-pass wipe with random data. That's all it does. He unplugged the drive when it quits blinking, which takes a long time.
What you're thinking? How do I make it alert us or tell us when it's done? You should write at the end of the script to send out a tweet, and then you can see the tweet come through.
That'd be kind of funny. Another drive's done. We thought about ringing a bell. We've had because we have it breadboarded with lights on it, so we can, because we can't see the hard drive lights because they face upwards. So we took LEDs and shoved them in the breadboard. And so we can see the LEDs, and whenever it stops blinking, we know the drives are done.
All right.
We talked about having it ring a bell or something too. But one of the other things is, I seen this. There's some Raspberry Pi honeypot projects that I'm going to play with. Have you ever seen the canaries? And do you guys use them in your environment?
I've heard of them, but no, we don't use them.
They're pretty cool. The canary goes a big step further than what you can do with the Raspberry Pi honeypot. So far, what I'm reading, because what the canaries do is actually spin up a session to emulate whatever the honeypot's looking for. And they have been really, really good at emulating a Cisco switch at whatever or whatever they want, because they spin up the MAC address and everything in the same range. So OS detection, they found out some of the malware has OS detection there to detect honeypots. They go, oh, look, it's a Cisco switch running inside of VMware. I wonder what it really is. So that they've been finding that. So they have been doing really, really good testing, and they use tons of OS fingerprinting internally at the canaries. So there's different things that can't, but if you just at least see the initial scan and have a honeypot running inside your own network, you can be alerted to something. So I've been looking at that as a cool little Raspberry Pi project to kind of get alerts to see what's going on inside of a network. It might be kind of a novel thing. Because the canary, as much as I think it's a great product, it also starts at, I think, $9,000 for one of the canaries.
Oh, so really?
They're not they're not something I'm going to do a demo on anytime soon.
Right.
Other interesting news. I love the title, and this is part of a security thing. It's called Flip Feng Shui.
Yeah.
You probably heard Steve Gibson talk about it on there. I went and also read they have a well documented with all the graphics on there. I'll include a link in the show notes at viewsec.net. That's a team that did the whole report on it, but they have graphics of how they did it and how they break it all down. What flip feng shui is a exploitation vector that allows an attacker in virtual machines to flip a bit in memory page of a victim's VM that runs on the same host as the attacker. And what they're exploiting is, and this doesn't really happen as much with VirtualBox, but for example, Docker and some of the other ones, when you're creating these environments, the way Docker becomes really efficient is it realizes that more than one virtual machine could be running the same thing. For example, SSH. So each one's both running SSHD. So it can say, hey, they're running the same exact version of that. Let's just combine that memory space. So it takes any two pieces of memory space and combines them. But that then gives you the knowledge, because you are one of the VMs, of where things would be in memory. And they use the Rowhammer attack to flip bits and determine where your key is stored in another virtual machine's memory. Now, this is not an easy attack at all. This is a very complex system, but I found it really fascinating because this could be the scary part of running the virtual machines. Basically, you're knocking on the doors with the Rowhammer, listening to these RAS and CAS, if you remember that from your old hardware days, your row address strobing and column address strobing, and it's the way memory and DRAM is refreshed, and listening for bit flips on there. I mean, that's detailed, but wow, that's the fact that it's an attack vector based on the shared memory space, looking for programs to take the same space on your VM and their VM and looking for the gaps. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's someone spending some time on there. And the fact that they did a proof of concept and they have a video and all the details broke down with graphics, because they break down and graphically. So Steve Gibson did a great job of verbally describing it, but their post is detailed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So if you guys want to read about it, it's Flip Feng Shui. And I had to look this up. It's Feng Shui is FENGSUHI.
Yeah.
But it'll be in the show notes as well. New Google Earth for Linux. I was unaware they were still updating that. I didn't know. I always thought they would go to a web version. I was surprised to see an update for that.
Right. I've seen everything web version now. So I didn't realize there was still an install app.
So I thought that was kind of cool. There's still an install app for it there, and which is pretty cool. So they're keeping that up to date. New OpenShot 2.1 video editor. Now this has been I've donated to the project and it seemed to take forever for the release. I was patient, but I had switched to Kdenlive in between because as one of the big hangups I always had was a lack of audio waveforms in the video editing. So that was a big hangup with OpenShot 2 with the previous versions. It didn't have the audio waveforms in there. It was a good product. It worked. It was really OpenShot's probably one of the easiest ones to learn because it's so simple for just basic video editing. But I moved over to Kdenlive, but now they've added audio waveforms, animation support, and all kinds of other features. They've also went cross-platform. Really? And so now they have a Mac and Windows version, which I think is really cool because people always ask me, how do I get started in video editing? And I'm always not sure. I mean, a lot of people upgrade to the Adobe products, which have really powerful, but also steep learning curve products for editing on Windows computers and not free. Kind of, especially for a hobbyist, it's kind of pricey. So this will be a great way to get in here. And the fact that it supports audio forms, I want to load the new version. I think there's a PPA they have available for it, or you can compile it, and that'll allow me to do some testing. Now, overall, my next news topic is actually Flowblade, which is another open source video editing software for Linux, also gained all kinds of new features and everything else. There's a great article that says 10 reasons to use Flowblade, the Linux video editor. I won't cover all those little details, but just overall, some of the things they've done is they did add the audio waveforms, but they're for some reason turned off by default, which is what turned me off to Flowblade and kept me on Kdenlive. But they also have just a plethora of nice technical features. Now, something that Kdenlive is very drag and drop, but I a lot of times on the edit because I'm being very precise. Flowblade has a lot more type in cuts on there. So you can do all the cuts with the drag and drop, but they have some more technical ways when you're editing the effects to just set the seconds and type it in there. I was just kind of looking at the preview from there. I'm like, that's actually kind of handy. Is that something I think it's 2 more clicks to get in Kdenlive to set it. They kind of just expect you to drag everything around to set it. And sometimes like, no, on 17 seconds in, do this. When I cut in my audio and I do my bunch of little cuts to do something, I'll cut in audio and I need it to fade out when my voice starts over when I have an intro. So it would be nice to be able to type that in because the little drag and drop thing for the gain control it's tedious and kind of a pain in the butt on Caden Live. That is something that I've gotten used to using, but they kind of expect you to drag a level around on the bottom. It's just not easy. It's not intuitive either. Because especially when you're trying to set all the little points and then they get goofed up, and I just hit Control Z a bunch of times to start over. So I'm going to see how that works in Flowblade. If I get a chance, maybe I'll just review all three. I'll load all three on my computer and do like a super review of what the pros and cons of them. But I really want to take a look at OpenShot, because being that it could be another way for people to get into video, and it's cross-platform now.
Yeah.
So that's what I had for the news. What do you got, Tony?
I found a few articles. One is I heard from my friend Carl yesterday. He says, did you hear about the USB stick that can fry your computer?
Yes, those are cool.
What? So I found the article on it, and it says this USB stick will fry your unsecured computer. And it shows a picture of, what looks to be something homemade. And that's what Carl was referring to, is that something you can just make yourself. But then there's one you can buy. It's called usbkill.com. And it goes through, and it's just something you plug in. And there's a video on this article. It's a Computer World article that can go through, and it will just fry your computer. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're kind of neat. Now, back to the high voltage things I bought. So we bought two different ones. One operates between 6 and 12 volts, and the other one operates at 3.6 volts, which 3.6, if you don't know, is the standard voltage of a single lithium-ion cell. And now 3.6 volts, it turns into 4,000 volts. And it's very, very tiny. Not tiny enough to fit in the USB, but it's pretty small. And I mean, like pockets, very about 1 inch by half an inch wide. It's a tiny little step-up transformer with the circuitry in there. But yeah, it takes 3.6 volts. Well, you can put 5 volts in it from a USB, of course, and produce the 4,000 volts just as easily. It doesn't take much amperage. And the way these USB ones, the killer USB ones work is they store up the voltage and they pulse it back in. So they build up into a little capacitor, and then they fire it back off, and that's the end of your computer.
Yeah.
They've demoed them. It takes no time at all, because USBs can push, even USB 1 pushes an amp out.
Yeah. 1 amp. That's crazy. People are building today, But it just,
that reminds me, did you see the hack for Windows where they have a USB stick that emulates a network adapter and uses the extended? I watched it in action. There's a couple of videos where people have already built them and put them in action that use Python. And there's some cool hacks. There's also, it's been popular again on the Hack5, hackshop.com, I think it is. They have the USB Rubber Ducky Deluxe for only $44 to capture passwords and things like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that, the way that Steve Gibson was talking about it too. And you could build one yourself. It doesn't seem to be that hard, because
no, not at all.
There's quarter-sized computers now that can run, just plug straight into the network. Well, why plug it into the network when you can solder it straight onto one of those USB NIC adapters? And most of the size of one of those USB NICs are the actual jack itself.
Well, a lot of
so
them,
you can yank the jack off and on both of those devices and solder the pins in right, and you're now a slimline device.
And also a lot of the ones, one of the things you can do with these, they sell the blanks. Like you can buy the USB network adapter setup, and you can just program it yourself. They're open.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, they have a programmable ROM on there, and they run, some custom version of Linux. I'm guessing they're ARM based and have Python on there. So you can take, and they have default scripts, and you can go in and modify them. So they're not like they just work. They will work out of the box like the one there, but they're also going to be further customized if you wanted to add more droppers on there and things like that. So I think I might buy one.
About the Rubber Ducky?
Yeah, I might buy some of these for some testing, because and also demonstrate some proof of concepts with them.
Yeah,
they look like a lot of fun.
All right. And then I found another article that was about the Oversight Committee report on the OPM breach.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's been, 2 years?
Yeah.
Since the breach, 2.5 years now.
Government works slow.
And finally they're like, well, according to a report from the U.S. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, the breach of the systems of the Office of Personnel Management, or the OPM, was due to, in large, a long-standing failure of OPM leadership to implement basic hygiene or security hygiene.
Security hygiene.
Right. Yeah. It's like, haven't we all said that already?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It is such a problem. They were just using no encryption. They were not. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, there's multiple levels of problems and
Multiple levels of problem.
yeah, and what really got me is I remember one quote that the director at the time said, "Well, when this happened, encryption wasn't really a big thing." It's like, really?
It's been
Everybody's been encrypting for years and years
and years,
now,
and
by default.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, I understand when you're using large enterprise, it's hard. Delta, for looking at you, it's hard. Redundancy didn't quite work the way you thought, but I mean, you have to do those things. You have to bite the bullet, and as much as you don't want to, as management, going, we got to count the dollars and cents, and we don't want to spend the money on redoing that. No, you have to.
Yeah, and that's it's just another point toward open source. People watching or looking at the code with you, saying, what you're doing is insecure. You need to change it and do this, and some people from the public to be able to put their comments in with what the government's about to implement.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and we want security and hygiene and security hygiene.
Security hygiene.
I love the phrase.
Right. All right. Well, that's really all I had.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's I always skip through the news because I mean we can go on there because I'll briefly mention it because this is the strategy of clickbait. Let's take a big company name, Dropbox. Let's say they got hacked. They did, 2012. So if you have not changed your Dropbox password since 2012, was it? Yeah, I think that's the date.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But to me, this is, I mean, when they knew there was a breach and they seem to kind of handle, I don't remember, just go back to 2012. You should change your password. If the company assumes, even there's a thought that there was a breach, change your password.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. People who have not changed their password are definitely on there, and it's not really a big news, but a lot of accounts got hacked because people have never changed their password, even when they're told to change their password. Anytime any company suffers any type of incident, change your password.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if they think we only had 10 million accounts and we've got 100 million, so it's only 10%, or we think it's only 1%, or we're not even sure what the count is. We think it's just really low because they weren't in there very long. No, change your password. Use two-factor authentication if it's important.
Yeah.
If you care about it at all, use two-factor. It's easy now.
I agree.
So
yeah, and for it, I still don't understand why it's a big article or a big news point. I've heard everybody talking about it. I'm like, really? We were, everybody was told 4 years ago when this happened to change your passwords.
Yeah.
And if you haven't changed your passwords in 4 years,
and it's kind of like one of those. It's one of those clickbaity things that kind of annoy me. It's like, oh, look, we have a big name and they had a password breach. Let's just mash those two things together because password breaches are clickable and big names attached to them.
Yeah.
So rehashing old news.
Exactly. One thing I had been listening to you guys, the shows that I missed, and I did hear that Mary said she was going to bring coffee, and I look around and Mary's not here.
Yeah, she heard my coffee. Yeah, she didn't bring coffee.
And made me think also that I don't remember hearing the upcoming Linux conferences.
There wasn't the last show.
There was?
Show, yeah.
Okay. Well,
she had a good list.
Oh, all right.
So you're not completely caught up.
I listened to it, but it was probably when I was driving or something.
Yeah, it was at the very end.
Oh, okay.
She had a short blurb because she had missed it in one of the other shows, and she put it in the last one. She had a good list.
Okay.
We did forget it in some of the other shows, so you're not completely wrong.
So it's usually the first one of the month that she puts in there. But I know that with the first and second weekends in October, there's a few pretty good ones. There's LinuxCon Europe, which is in Berlin, Germany, and then Ohio Linux Fest, which is October 8th in Columbus, Ohio. Yes. So, and that's when I know I'm going to. Tom said he might have something that might take up his time that weekend, so might not be able to make it, but
yeah, I'm trying to make it all happen. I have TEDx the day before, and we just have a bunch of projects that if they land later, I'm good. But I am part of the social media team for TEDx Detroit. If you haven't been, a lot of people have heard of TED Talks, and then you have the TEDx Talks, which are the ones that go on individual cities. I'm part of the social media team and helping them out with a few things. So I'm really busy the day before. I won't have time if I have those other projects land on there. So.
Right. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, it's nonstop for me.
When is TEDx coming? Is there a date yet?
October 6th. It's the day before. It's the day.
I thought you were okay.
Yeah, it's the day before. So the Ohio Linux Fest is
The
Friday.
It begins Friday, but that's just like people getting together, or it's the paid thing. Yeah. Huh.
And then the Thursday before it is because it happens on TEDx happens on a Thursday. I don't know why it happens on a Thursday. I just know that it happens on a Thursday. That wasn't a part I had a decision in.
Yeah.
Happened on Thursday last year too. I don't know who chooses that.
I remember somebody explaining to me what the X stands for. But I can't remember now.
They call them, they just refer to them as the TEDx events because they're not part, they are, but are not part of the actual TED. TED sanctions them and allows you to use their name, but X just means it's one of the cities. It's not the TED event.
Oh, okay.
But these talks that go on at the TEDx events get curated, and sometimes if something was really amazing, they may do their talk at the actual TED Talk.
All right.
Which is really hard to get into, and not many people can make it to the actual TED Talks.
Yeah.
There's limited seating, limited availability of things, and a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules for running a TEDx conference.
Yeah.
There's 0 paid positions. We all have to be people who donate our time to this. There are ticket sales because the venue, they don't give it to us for free. So there is expense associated with it, but all of us are volunteers involved in it. Nobody makes any money on it at all.
Where's it at?
Fox Theater again in Detroit.
Okay. Definitely
a good event. Definitely should go there. It's worth the day off work.
Yeah. All right. I guess we're coming down to the music, right?
Oh yeah. What do we got for music?
The outgoing music for this week's show.
And I figure with the OpenBSD release, we should go with their song.
Yes.
They actually have a couple of them. There's Black Hat. I haven't listened to these at all, so it's going to be. Let's throw it in there and hopefully it sounds good. There's one's called Black Hat, another Smash of the Stack, Money, Comfortably Dumb, Mother, and Goodbye. Maybe. How about another Smash of the Stack?
Okay. I like that.
All right. Let's see. Let's download the OGG. And that's nice. All right.
I like that.
Yeah, I like the.
I'm going to look up the lyrics because I like them so much.
Yeah, it's a parody of the Pink Floyd song.
Yes, because I've always liked that song, so now I like this song now.
Yeah. So it says, in 20 years of mitigating security issues, we've encountered plenty of resistance. Some upstream projects don't seem to care that their software follows unsafe practices or sacrifice security in favor of obsolete method. Yeah. It takes sustained pressure to tear down the walls. So, all right, I like that. So that was another Smash of the Stack for OpenBSD 6.0. All right, so you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 208.
Tony's back.
I'm back. And this was Tony Bemis.
And Tom Lawrence.
And have a good week.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-7009. I'm John Miller. If you don't like it, you can
Bite my 8-bit metal ass. That's bite with a Y.
All right. So we just want to say goodbye to everybody on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Let me get in here and hit stop. And goodbye, YouTubers. Our 0 visitors, live visitors. Thanks. No. But we get a few people that watch it after it's been posted. So
yeah.
All right. Bye.